Hello, friends of Binge O'Clock. I wanted to let everybody know this next episode was Danielle and I guest starring on Nella's podcast, the Apocalist Book Club, where we watched 2 zombie movies and had a blast. This is part 2, where we talk about Dawn of the Dead. And then after that, we'll be getting into Kipo and the Age of the Wonder Beasts. And we really hope you join us. Thank you so much. Enjoy the show.
All right, so let's continue this double feature picture show with Dawn of the Dead.
Double creature feature.
1978. Not the 2000 version. Was it 99 or was it 2004?
You're asking the wrong person.
When was the remake?
I think it was 2009.
See, I haven't seen the remake.
Neither have I.
So now I'm curious. But anyway. What?
It's you haven't seen the remake, and Danielle's like, neither have I. I was like, of course you haven't.
Well, no, of course you haven't.
Well, not the listeners of the Apocalypse don't know that I haven't seen anything.
Oh, that's fair. You can add, I don't know if Apocalypse does bingo cards, but you can add Danielle hasn't seen it to your bingo card as a freebie on your card.
So yeah, we have, here we are, a decade after Night of the Living Dead. A lot's happened in that decade, both societally and in regards to the development of Romero's career. Within this period, he has made movies like The Crazies, which is interesting. And then also Martin, which, again, going back to our friend Maven of the Eventide, she does a great review about Martin because it's about somebody who thinks he's a vampire. Or is he? Or isn't he? Who can say? So 1010 recommend that review. And in this environment, Romero starts thinking about making that sequel. Now, we watched the 139-minute version that we could find on YouTube. There's also Dario Argento's cut, which is 119 minutes, and then the theatrical 127-minute. And it's not available streaming anywhere, and it's a little tricky to get your hands on the DVD or Blu-ray. So what's up with that? And it kind of goes back to the issues that came into Night of the Living Dead and the fact that as soon as it was released, it was in the public domain. And the reason for that is they failed to copyright the movie's title because the original title of the movie was Night of the Flesh Eaters.
Oh.
So Night of the Living Dead, they had no, rights to, technically. It was in public domain.
Why did they change it? Do we know why they changed it?
They just thought that that Night of the Living Dead hit better. Night of the Flesh Eaters is so B-movie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It really is so B-movie. And I feel like if they named it Night of the Flesh Eaters, I feel like it would not have delivered on the B-movie aspects. There were B-movie aspects to it, but it was not, it would not have, been as campy as what it's so sad.
I don't know if I'm using the right idiom here. I feel like I'm using the wrong idiom, but they it's a bit like burying the lead because you don't find out that they're flesh eaters until 100 minutes into the movie, Exactly. So it's like you've given it away.
Yeah, but something's up and these people are dead.
Right, yes, exactly. Okay, anyway, Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah, so now we're in the late 70s, and George Romero and Richard P. Rubinstein are looking to secure funding for the sequel, Dawn of the Dead. But they're not able to really collect financing in the U.S., but they are put in connection to the Italian director and producer Dario Argento, who is jazzed at the idea of a sequel. He's just like, oh, this is great. I'll introduce you to my friends in Rome. We'll raise the money for it. All I ask is that you give me all the footage you have and I will make my own cut of your movie for my Italian audiences. Now, that seems a little weird, right? And Romero's like, but do you want it to go in any direction? And Dario's like, no, just give me the footage.
Give me your masterpiece. But I want to put my own spin on it.
You make the movie you want to. I just want to make my own cut of it. And now here's the thing. They were on incredibly good terms. This isn't and then it suddenly turned sour. They remained buds as far as I can tell. But it just then became this weird issue of distribution because you have the issue of like Dario Argento technically has the foreign distribution rights, and then Rubinstein has weird distributing rights himself, and like never the twain shall meet. And that's why it's like you're able to make a Blu-ray and a DVD, but even then, like, is it region locked? Is it not? Like, and that's why it's not streaming anywhere except on YouTube, technically not allowed. It's just not. It's so weird. So I find it really fascinating, the change we see. One, it's in color, but even the color palette is nutso. And I really do believe it's inspired by the Giallo style. So what is that? You know how people call like a certain part of YouTube breadtube? But like, it's not like there's like a rule book for what makes somebody a breadtube creator. You have to follow these leftist principles, and then only then you are a breadtuber. The same goes for Giallo, where it's this very stylized slasher, kind of gory, but very thriller suspense kind of horror movie. And there's two schools of thought. Is it that it's just like the style of it, or does it have to specifically come out of Italy from the 60s throughout the 80s? And, there's some debate about that. But the word giallo itself is from the Italian for yellow. It was supposed to sort of evoke the yellow covers of pulpy, violence-filled crime novels that were published in Italy. But there was no like Team Giallo, But, these movies tend to have kind of reoccurring elements like black gloves and sharp knives and tracking shots and like eye-popping close-ups. And also, I really would say that like the color palette for these movies is off the chain. Like someone is having a lot of fun with gel lights. Like, those gel filters on these movies are like nutso.
And I know you and I were talking about like some of the slightly blaxploitation inspired shots.
Yeah. So another thing I think you have to keep in mind when watching this movie is what's considered the first blaxploitation movie happened in 1971. It was called Sweetback's Badass Song. And that was an independent production that was filmed, written, directed, and produced by Melvin Van Peebles, who played the title role. And then after 71, though, of course, one black team makes a thing that has an audience that people respond to, and then a bunch of white people go, let's keep doing that until we drive into the ground and we completely divorce it from the thing that made it popular in the first place.
And then they did it.
Yes, precisely. And the reason it gets called blaxploitation is because there was backlash in the black community about these are violent stories. They're showing pimps. They're showing drug violence. They're showing all these really terrible things. Like, this is not helping. Why are we allowing these movies? Why are we starring in these movies? So something to keep in mind.
I think horror is a kind of genre that kind of, I mean, there are other genres too, but I feel like horror specifically is a genre that is easily adapted to, like, you don't need a lot of budget. You don't need, an amazing script. You don't need a bunch of other pieces. You just kind of need certain horror elements, and then you make a horror movie, and then you patent it, and you send it out into the world, and then you start making another one. Like, there are a lot of very low-budget horror companies. Even, I think some of them are even still around, where they're just like, they just turn stuff out like a factory, and it like, yes, they share some of the same elements. They have, the special effects are somewhat the same. Sometimes the color palette is similar, but a lot of it is just like, what do you got? Radioactive sludge that turns people green? Cool, we're doing it. Like, and they just go. And I don't know any other genre of film that has that. Like, not even science fiction. Like, I feel like there aren't a lot of science fiction studios that are just like, we could just turn out a bunch of alien movies just at the drop of a hat. Like, they don't do that. Horror, for some reason, I don't know, it unites the weirdos of us all to like, what if we just, like, splashed a bunch of paint around stage and called it blood and filmed it for 2 hours?
So many horrific things out there. Whereas...
Also true.
With space, it's like, alien species, new worlds.
And I think there's a lot you can accomplish in low-budget horror, because you have suspense. You have, with camera angles, with lighting, with music.
close
you can
shots,
so easily
screaming.
make something terrifying.
Yeah.
You don't even have to rely too much on gore, although the gore is fun and the makeup is fun.
The gore is fun.
But I got us a little sidetracked. So yeah,
No.
the color palette.
What I love is that the idea for this movie came about 3 years before its production, when Romero was invited to visit the Monroeville Mall, which was this huge, it still is, an immense indoor shopping center that his friend, or this investor friend managed. And here's Romero's quote. When they first showed us around, they took us to where they had sealed off rooms upstairs packed with civil defense stuff, which they had put there in the event of some disaster. And that's what gave me the idea. I mean, my God, here's this cathedral to consumerism, and there's also a bomb shelter.
I mean, there it is. There's your movie.
And that's it. I have to share this, though, because so they decide, yes, we're going to film this movie in this particular mall. Here's the problem. They technically had access to the entire mall and about 130 of the 143 stores while they filmed.
That's not bad.
Yeah, they have like pretty much full range on this mall. The problem is they could only shoot at night, but there were also like restaurants and taverns in there that didn't close until 2 a.m. in the morning. And then worse, the mall music came on at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Oh.
So their filming window was from 2 a.m. to 7 a.m. every day, and that
You're
was it.
telling me there was no way we could have controlled the music in that space?
Nope. Supposedly not. Supposedly the mall would not budge on this thing.
What?
Yes.
I find that amazing. The birth of malls was like, you will have music from these specific times, and you will not be able to shut it off because we're a mall, dang it.
And
The
this
music
is the
goes
way.
on at
And-
7 a.m. and the music will like it.
Brand above all else.
So they would be in these huge conference rooms, like trying to make sure all the zombies and everyone was ready to go right at 2 a.m. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's amazing.
That would be so nerve-wracking. How did they do the daytime shots? Did they do that on a separate lot, or we don't know?
I mean, I'm sure they, like, for the separate shots, the outdoor shots, that feels easier because I
Sure.
think it's easier to close off, like, an entire part of what I'm sure is a monstrously large parking lot.
Right.
And then just angling the cameras instead of, like, and then people are, like, hanging out in the bar that you're filming outside of, and I'm sorry, you can't leave the bar until we've done this shot. No, it just doesn't work. Weirdly enough, it's like you have more control over the outdoor shot than the indoor shot.
Amazing. I'm trying to imagine what on earth that shot schedule would have been like. It must have been
right?
awful and torture. Like, I know shooting schedules can be torturous anyway, because a lot of times, depending on what you're doing, you're there very early, you stay very late. But man, basically being like night crew for the whole shooting schedule is insane.
It sort of makes you wonder, like, if that's why so many shots take place in that little, like, alcove they make themselves.
Right?
That isn't in the mall proper. So to avoid that. Side note, they entirely shut down production around Christmas time because they're like, no, we're not messing with that.
A mall during Christmas?
We'll wait until after Christmas. Thank you.
Love that. Love
Which,
that they
to be
had the
fair-
wherewithal.
To be fair, probably an easier thing to do in the 70s than nowadays because Christmas starts in August now.
Fair.
It would have been
Yeah.
Christmas for the entire shooting schedule.
Yeah, then it would just be a mall at Christmas.
But yes, are we doing this a plot by plot, or are we?
Yeah, let's get into it. You know, the movie itself starts in media res, and it's supposed to be really a direct sequel to Night of the Living Dead. And what we learn at this panicked opening at a broadcast station is that this disaster has been happening for 3 weeks. And so we're stuck with these talking heads screaming about what's happened, like, what are people supposed to do?
Everyone has an opinion.
Yeah, like, there's the opinion of, are you willing to murder people by sending them to these rescue stations that no longer exist? Get that information off the screen. And then, like, the head broadcaster's like, no, it stays on the screen until this is over. We're not removing that information, even though the information isn't correct. We're staying on the air. this is where we meet Fran, who is the woman. We've got the one. Francine Fran Parker, played by Galen Ross, who is an American director, writer, producer, and actress. So well done.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Good for her.
She does documentaries, interestingly enough.
Love that.
I love that she's just like, I did my horror and I'm done.
Anyway, so she's kind of stuck there, and that's when her boyfriend, Stephen Flyboy Andrews, who works as the air helicopter traffic flyer, the traffic controller, who's like up there in the airplane being like, oh, look at the traffic down there. Yeah,
Goodness, I forgot the setup for his character.
Yeah. Of course, he comes in with the most ridiculous World War II bomber jacket, and it's just like, sir, you fly a helicopter to report on traffic conditions.
It's got this big fluffy collar.
And curse you joy. You look like Hugh Laurie, so all I can hear in my voice is Bertie Wooster.
It's true. While we were watching
Hugh Laurie, though.
While we were watching this,
he looks like an American Hugh Laurie.
It was so sad because I couldn't see anything else. He like turned his head and I was like, I don't know, man, there's something about the nose and the set of the eyes. He just looks like Hugh Laurie. I can't not see it.
And now I can't never not see it either.
You're welcome.
Which also meant as we were watching it, I just kept devolving further and further into What Ho Jeeves jokes. So you're welcome.
They were kind of brilliant. I hope you wrote some of them down. Some of them were really good.
Let me get through my notes and we'll see. So Steven pulls Fran, his girlfriend, out of there. We're getting out. You know, he's got access to the helicopter. I guess no one's looking. So they get out of there. That's when we cut to Roger, Trooper DeMarco, and Peter Washington. These are our cops. Oh, boy. And this scene is horrific.
Yeah.
I really feel like there was a social commentary that was trying to be made, but the execution was woof.
Are we? So, this is the scene where the National Guard is raiding the low-income housing.
Yes.
Apartments. So this was horrific in more ways than one.
Now, here's what's happening in the scene. How to even begin? Okay. Black and I assume Latino gangs are holding off the cops from entering this low-income housing because the National Guard is trying to collect the bodies of the dead and also put down the dead who are inside. But of course, the people living within this tower community is like, and I feel like this is something that would happen in real life of like, they're not dead, you can't take our people, you're just coming to kill us all. Like,
right. And to be clear, the Black and Latina gangs are defending the apartment building from the National Guard, but the people who live in the apartment building are just regular
normal people. Precisely.
Normal people.
They're just assumed to be low-income people living in this housing complex. The scene is rough. Like, do not get it twisted. Roger and Peter are part of, like, the cop SWAT team supporting this. There is a super racist cop that straight up shoots a black man in the face, but then ends up getting shot by Peter himself. Peter Washington, who is played by Ken Foree. God, I really love Peter.
We all love Peter.
Roger played by Scott Renninger.
Renninger.
Don't quote me on that. Supposedly, he had his like great-great-grandfather was this white guy who went to Afghanistan and became the prince of a region of Afghanistan.
Really?
Yeah. And technically, because of that, he is a prince in a region of Afghanistan.
Huh. Wow.
There was a really interesting BBC article I found about that, but moving on.
Fun fact.
Roger is a loose cannon. Like, Peter's a loose cannon, but Roger is a loose cannon. Like, Peter is doing what he can to survive. Roger, I think, gets a little too gun-happy because he's kind of losing it. The scene within the building is absolute chaos. There is a lot to be said about how it depicts the panic and distress people of color have of public health pushes and of being forced into them in moments of crisis. Where to even begin?
I mean, people of color and people who live in low income housing getting blamed for public health crises.
Sure.
There's a lot of that here going on here.
I mean, but here's where we start seeing really our first view of what the zombies look like. There's a lot of blue paint, which
Zombie Smurfs.
It's very blue.
I had forgotten. So I had seen this movie sort of in bits and pieces when I was younger, and it didn't. I feel like I saw scenes from it. Like, I feel like I didn't actually watch the whole thing. Like, maybe it was on TV one night and I just watched the last half of it or something. Oh man, does the color palette on these people go into some goofy... You know, at least Night of the Living Dead, it's like, it's all in black and white. You kind of don't really know, like, you get the sunken eyes, but you can't really tell, like, what the makeup looks like. You know, it's sort of a lot of crusty, a lot of pale. Here, though, it was this weird fascination of, like, at first I thought, do they think dead black people turn blue? Because that's
everyone
weird.
Turns blue.
No, but then that's what I mean. Like, then everyone was blue. Then everyone was blue and green, and I was like, so it's just the zombies that just turned this beautiful shade of cerulean blue. Got it.
It's so carnival-esque. The color palette in this movie is so carnival.
But see, I think that this scene just so completely threw me off for the rest of the movie because it was
Gee, I wonder why.
No, it was just, yes, it was outlandish, racist violence, but it was violent and it was big and it was loud and it was campy, right? Because of the colors and because of everything that was happening. And because the movie essentially opens this way and opened in that chaotic broadcasting studio, I thought that the rest of the movie would have this level of energy. And even if I had to hate watch it, because that's fine, sometimes that happens, I would be able to like at least get into kind of the energy of the film. But it just like dropped suddenly, I think.
Oh, it nosedives. It knows.
Yeah, directly after this scene, basically.
As soon as we leave the crowds, it nosedives. I think.
And I think it is trying to set up, like, you have two different sets of people connected by the friendship between Steve and Roger. And these are two sets of people that are in the thick of it in their own way, right? You have, like, the people in broadcast who are, like, responsible for trying to get the news out. And then they throw their hands up and say, I'm done. And then you have two police officers, two SWAT officers, who are the ones actually being tasked with going around and, like, taking care of the problem. Like, they finally get down to the basement, which is a very don't dead open inside basement.
It
is. Oh boy.
Where a lot of the people in this building have placed their dead, and they are the living dead. They're moving around in there, and it is not great. And we meet a priest with a one leg who drops when the question comes of, well, why would they put these people down here? Because they believe there's still respect in dying. One of the things in zombie properties is there's always a storyline of somebody has someone beloved of theirs who dies and reanimates, and they try to hold on to them to the detriment of everyone because they believe, well, maybe there's a cure, maybe something can be done, maybe the person I love is still in there. And as much as, like, we, the viewer, can be annoyed at that person's choice in that moment, and how it ruins everything, it is the most human thing you can do.
It is, and I think the way the priest is framing it is that, look around you. Look at all of this senseless violence and all of the killing that has happened in the past, 7 minutes? Like, if you all cared about the lives of people who live in this neighborhood, you wouldn't have come storming into the space like this, and you wouldn't have mowed down regular civilians. So clearly we don't actually care about the lives of the people who live in this building. You just want to come in and take over the space because that's what you want to do.
No, you see it as a nest that needs to be cleaned out. Exactly. Yeah, it's real oof. But that's why Peter and Roger look at each other and they're just like, we're out. We're done. This is not what we signed up to do. So this is where the two groups meet up to get into the helicopter. Roger brings Peter. Stephen has Fran. There is, I do love this bit where Fran's like, when they're talking about where they've come from, and he's like, I had brothers down there, and she goes, real brothers or street brothers?
Or friend brothers.
Friend brothers. And I'm just like,
Fran.
I don't know. It was just like,
oh, honey.
The way the character says it is the single whitest woman thing ever. But I'm just like,
oh, honey. Is the only way I can respond to that.
Oh, honey, exactly.
It was a real, like, you can't just ask someone why they're white moment. Yeah. It was, I don't know. It was, I feel like on the heels of all the violence we experienced, it was just such a weird, like, oops moment of awkward socialness that I was like, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess she said the quiet part out loud. Good job.
She sure did. I mean, we'll come together and get over it, but, like, I don't know. It's so awkward that I can't help but kind of laugh at it. But so they fly off. There's a gas pit stop that has to be made. And this is where we get some of that, like, classic slow shambling zombie, like, you know, you let your guard down and then they're on you. Although there's this hilarious point where someone's got their back turned while working on the helicopter and the zombies coming for them, and you think, oh no, it's going to grab them. But then the chopper blades get the zombie, and I laughed.
That was such a,
I thought that scene was great.
What a beautiful, ridiculous, campy moment in a
Loved
zombie
it.
movie.
Loved
But,
to
like,
see
this
it.
is what I mean. Like, this is where you're able to have this sort of comedic moment in something like this, which,
you know,
I just...
rewatching Dawn of the Dead made me appreciate Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead so much more.
Yep.
Because we don't get the camp in Night of the Living Dead. Dawn of the Dead is where we're allowed to be campy with this.
Yes.
And it's good, and I like it.
I think the 70s and into the 80s also really solidified this horror camp of, you know, you have certain elements that are brought over into every horror topic. And you know, one of them is like, maybe the zombie will take care of itself on that helicopter propeller.
Right? Yeah. So they
no, that's all right. Speaking of, like, classic horror tropes or classic zombie movie tropes, this is when we get the argument about where do we go next? What do we do? Right? We're out of fuel. Where's the next fuel stop? And I guess it's at the mall.
They have enough fuel to get to the mall and land on the mall. Steven's been flying this entire time. He's exhausted. We need to take care of our pilot because he's the only one who knows how to fly this thing.
I do love that he goes to take a nap just immediately.
Yes, my poor Steven. My poor Bertie Wooster has to take a nap. Meanwhile,
so tired.
Peter and Roger decide we're going to turn everything on, which this mall still miraculously has power. They turn the music on. Now, there are still zombies in the mall.
Mm-hmm. But, you know, they're shamblers. They're really slow. They're few and far between, right? Yeah. So Steven is the one who doesn't know how to use a gun. Peter and Roger know what they're doing. So they just, wipe a few of the zombies out.
Yeah.
While scavenging for supplies.
We start getting the idea of, we're just scavenging and we have, like, the plans, which is so weird because, like, they find the plans for the mall, but they don't read them right. And Steven, even though he's a bumbling idiot, like, he's, like, reads the plans better than they do.
Well, everyone has strengths and weaknesses, right?
Exactly.
Steven can't shoot a gun, but the man can read some schematics. The man
at least Bertie Wooster can read a map, for goodness sakes.
I love so much that he was so bad at gun shooting. He was awful at it. Like, even did the thing that you're never supposed to do, which is shoot a gun at your companion, or aim a gun, rather, at your companion, which, Peter, I think it's Peter, is able to really get like you like that? You like me shooting a gun in your face? Don't do it.
Yeah.
And really kind of putting him in his place. But it was so good to be like, oh, look, he's not useless. You didn't choose a bozo.
Although in this initial section of the movie, once we're first in the mall and we haven't started really clearing it out yet, boy, did we end up with the three biggest disaster chaos boys, I swear to God. Like,
yes.
Foreshadowing, like the chaos energy these three guys have versus Fran, who, by the way, is pregnant. Whoopsie.
Whoops.
And, like, Fran still ends up the sensible one. Like, and in terms of sensibleness, it's probably Fran, Peter Washington, Steven, and then Roger.
Yeah.
Which also then pretty much mirrors who dies first.
That's exactly right. Because,
Just
you know,
eat your
the
way up
boys
from the bottom.
decide to go on a shopping spree. And some of the things they find are useful, like a TV or a radio. And some of them are things like a brand new wallet that you really enjoy or a sweater. While Fran is just waiting in a room for them to return.
Yeah, although still, even in this movie, though, like, we have those 70s era feminist discussions of the guys talking about, should we take care of the pregnancy? And Fran being like, I'm right here.
Talk to
It's
me.
my body, my choice. And even down to Fran insisting, like, you will treat me as an equal. You will teach me how to fly. You will
Yes.
not treat me as, like, you know, something delicate. I need to be able to hold my own.
Right. Like, I
and
want to
really
learn
Teach me how to
something
shoot.
useful.
Teach me how to fly.
Exactly, exactly. And like very 70s, you know, version of it, but still Fran really holds her own within the party itself.
And I think that's super sensible because they only have one pilot. They only have
Exactly.
Steven. So if something
Exactly.
happens to Steven, they need to be able to get away.
And like, but even in this beginning, you know, as they're trying to figure out their options and they realize they might have a pretty good sweet deal here, Fran is the one that's like, this mall is a prison.
Yeah.
Although then Steven makes the stupid line of, you're the one that wanted to set up house. And I'm like, not now, Bertie Wooster. Not now. Bad time, Bertie Wooster. Don't you dare.
Read the room, man. Read the room.
I love a horror movie that has a couple who obviously shouldn't still be together, but because of horror
yes.
circumstances are like thrown together anyway. And like so many times we get Fran and Steven on like opposite pillars of what their relationship is and should be. You know, because they're both dealing with the apocalypse in very different ways. And like, you know, sometimes they want hope, but hope doesn't look right, like the same from one character to the other. And, you know, they'll despair. But again, the despair looks different from one character to the other. And it's just so good when a horror movie is able to throw these characters together in a way that's like, you're gonna survive for as long as you can with this person who is probably not good for you anyway in any other circumstances outside of this horror situation. Like, oh boy. I love it when a movie
within
does
this
that.
horror situation.
Anyway,
They're not
within
great
this
for
horror
each other,
situation.
but they're the only thing they have.
Yeah.
So here we go.
I mean, Steven was the one who pulled her out of the broadcast station, and they're here together now, and it just is what it is. So anyway, they decide to hunker down, and here's where we get into the truck heist plan. Because we have to clear the mall. But the first thing we have to do is we have to make sure that no more zombies can enter the mall. And it's not just enough to, you know, pull down the metal barricades. No, we have to make sure that it's hard for zombies to get there. What can we block it off with? I know. Look at all those trucks there in the distance. Great. So we're going to do a great big back and forth with a bunch of trucks to block off the main entrances.
Now, as far as plans go, it's not a terrible plan.
No, it's not
I feel
a
like
terrible
they needed
plan.
like one more person.
It's not a terrible plan. No, what they needed was Roger to cool it.
That's exactly
We needed Roger
what I was
to
going
keep
to
his
say.
eye on the prize, and he didn't.
Exactly. Like, they just needed him to be a little bit less of an agent of chaos.
Well, the thing is, and like, I do think, you know, as much as, again, back to the zombie thing of, like, when you're watching a thing and you're like, why is he losing it? Why is he acting that way? If I were there, I wouldn't. Look, you're doing this run back and forth between all these zombies and these trucks, and, like, your adrenaline's kicked it, and you've already had a near miss. Like, I 100% believe that you would lose your cool and you would lose your mind. And you would do something stupid. And that's why slow zombies, to me, are so effective. Because you don't think they're a threat until, oh no, wait, I have underestimated them.
Yeah. And they're on top of you. And listen, was it as bad as Tommy waving gas over a lit torch?
No.
No.
But still, Roger gets got. You know, first there's this,
Does
like,
get got.
sensual zombie caress on his face.
Oh, yeah, that was weird.
So weird. And then, like, they really take a chunk out of his leg. Oof. Oof.
Yeah.
That was some real good practical effects there, my friends.
I want to know what that leg was made out of. It kind of crumbled apart really interestingly. It's like a chicken leg or something.
And then here we are, and like all apocalyptic genre is that all it takes is one misstep and you're dead, and you've lost everything you've worked towards.
Mm-hmm.
So Roger is pretty much out of the count. He can't walk, so they put him pretty much in a cart. And
A little
they're
wheelbarrow.
carting him around to try and like do this cleanup. And then we start getting into kind of the mall montage, as I'll call it.
Yes.
Of where I can't get over the nun that's trapped in the door, though. I cannot get over it. Side note. That nun, that zombie nun. You know, they're cleaning out the mall. Roger is starting to get sicker and sicker. The fever is spiking. Fran is the one who is very much like, is there anything we can do? Can we take him to a rescue station? Can we do anything to save him? And Peter is the one who says, I've seen people bitten by these things. They last 3 days, and then they die, and then they turn.
Mm-hmm.
Peter knows what's coming, and he's going to lose, like, his dude.
I know. Oh, it's so sad.
Yeah.
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 Peter
is really
and Roger
sad.
are just, like, imagine losing that one dude who really got you during the apocalypse,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Fran and Steven, for all that they're, like, a kind of weird couple, at least have each other. Like, Peter had Roger. Like,
Yeah.
And look, do I ship it? Yes.
Yes.
Am I sad when it happens? Of course I am.
Absolutely. They drag it out for so long because they don't want to let Roger go. So they're, keeping him going with morphine, trying to make sure that he's as comfortable as possible. But then eventually...
And then we're running around the mall, doing all the silly things you can do when a mall is yours.
Playing in the arcade.
Alone. Exactly.
Going ice skating.
In a way, it's almost like, trying to make sure this guy has a good out before we have to put down old Yeller.
Like one last hurrah. Exactly.
Yeah. Funny enough, now I tried to find the script for this movie, and I don't remember hearing the word when we were watching it. The script I found, I'm not sure if this is the official script, but the script I found has the word zombie in all of the directions. But I don't remember anyone actually saying the word zombie throughout the entire movie.
I don't remember them saying it either.
But they're still not, we've moved from ghouls to zombie, at least in regards to the script direction. But still no one said the word, interestingly enough. But we do have this scene where they're standing out, looking over the mall, and... They sort of realize that, these zombies are still trying to get in the mall. Why are they trying to come here? What do they want here? And Peter kind of has, and of course it's Peter because he's the black guy. He's the one that brings up, the Haitian voodoo tradition of what zombies actually are. And how, his great-grandfather or grandfather was a practitioner. And that he had said once, when there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth. But that's like the one nod to zombies that that they are zombies that we get in the movie that I could find.
No, I think that's right. At least that's what I remember.
Mm-hmm.
Supposedly, yes, zombie is said in Dawn of the Dead by Peter and I think by one of the doctors on the television.
Okay.
While they're discussing it. Apparently, it's also used by a reporter on the radio once in Night of the Living Dead, but I don't remember that.
No, they didn't. No, they used ghoul in that movie.
Or assassins, weirdly.
Yeah.
Yeah, the assassins was a funny.
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
Assassins. Mass
See, nowadays
murderers.
we would say terrorists, but... But then we get the death of Roger. You might consider it massively over melodramatic, but I do think there's something about Roger sitting there and saying, I'm going to try really hard. If I die, I'm going to try really hard not to come back. But if I come back, I need you to take care of me, Peter. Which Peter has to do. And then they bury him in the, in
one of the plant beds.
One of the weird plant beds that's in malls.
I love that.
Because where else would you bury him?
Exactly. Where else are you going to put him?
Heartbreaking.
I feel like the movie really hits a stride after Roger goes.
Yeah.
There's the biker gang stuff. And
it all goes pretty quickly after that, because then there's this brief, heterosexual tableau where Peter is, serving Fran and Steven, a gourmet dinner. like, and they're all dolled up, like,
yeah, a date night.
because I guess like Roger's dead, so what else is Peter gonna do?
I mean, you know,
She's definitely drinking, which I forgot to look up. So when did we really start pushing, no, you can't smoke or drink when you're pregnant? And I'm pretty sure it wasn't in the 70s, so here we are. They've made a very cozy house for themselves in this, like, alcove, like, tucked away through, like, the HVAC system. They've actually, like, built up a wall hiding the door that leads there, and they actually come back and forth through a rope ladder.
which is pretty great.
Which we're going to get into with the motorcycle gang, because I feel like we had a pretty good system happening here, and we threw it all away.
And how?
So here we are. We ratchet everything up to 11 because humanity, that's the real problem in the zombie apocalypse. There's a motorcycle gang of raiders, and they see Steven teaching Fran how to fly the helicopter. And they're like, aha, they have a pretty good setup over there. We should try to take it. Now, they first start trying to radio in, which first off, I feel like that's assuming a lot that these people have their radio on, but okay, go off. And of course they lie. They're like, oh, there's only 3 of us. You know, you should, like, let us in. They end on the, you know, we don't like people who don't share. You up real bad. Now, here's the thing. Okay, fine. It's implied that the motorcycle gang is, like, pillage and rapist and, like, awful people who will kill you all and take everything, right? Like, that's implied.
Yeah, I think so.
But once they actually get into the mall, I really do feel like they do not care about finding the humans.
No! I 100% agree with you.
Like,
They just kind of gently mess with them and do reasonable things like finds the store full of weapons and arm themselves.
Yeah. You know? They, like,
Still can't
steal
believe
it.
all
They
those
steal
weapons
things.
were still in the damn store, by the way.
I know. They steal things. They knock things over. They're having a riot. They're like throwing cream pies.
Yes,
at, like,
and killing zombies.
Faces and killing them, but also throwing cream pies. And meanwhile, you have specifically created a false front to the one entrance to your hidey hole.
Yeah.
And Steven and Peter decide, no, they have to be bad. And they grab their weapons and they're like on their walkie-talkies and they're like, what do you think you're going to do with that rifle?
Right.
Boys, you are 2 against like
30.
At least 40, 50.
So many.
This is
So many.
What are you doing?
I mean,
What are you doing?
I feel like we can't underestimate the power of drugs. I feel like this biker gang was on a lot of drugs. Like, even that radio call, man, it wasn't even like school children. At least school children would try to, like, quiet the fact that they're definitely playing these people. Right? Like, how many people are there? 3 of us. And you hear the crowd of bikers go,
I know.
Like, you know, I got the impression that everyone was, like, hopped up on something.
Yeah,
and
you're
I
not
was
wrong.
like, yeah, they didn't come here. Like, maybe they could have made this their base of operations after they had a little fun. But they were not a focused group at all.
No. And I think it's something to be said about in regards to, like, the people we've been following, you know, Steven and Peter and Fran. Fran, not so much, but with the guys, it's like, is there this weird sense of, like, no, we've earned this, when in fact you didn't. You just landed here and you just happened to clear it out, but nothing you did actually earned you the right to this, like, wonderland of comfort, actually. Not I'm saying, like, yeah, go down and open all the doors and be like, come on in, the water's fine. I wouldn't trust the biker gang that far. But this sense of, like,
sure
I have to go down and defend my
Yeah.
property as a man.
I think they even say it during one of those mall montages where they're like, I'm taking this because I deserve it.
Yeah.
And it's like, why, though? I mean, like, if you're looting, just loot. Looting's fun. Like, just loot. No one's going to be like, there's no security guard to tell you can't.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know. They had this weird entitlement to the space when all they could have done was hop in that helicopter and GTFO.
Exactly. If they had just skulked out of there, they would have survived.
why did they have to leave even? I mean, maybe keep an eye on the helicopter in case, like, they do find a way to the roof and then try to with your helicopter, because we can't have that. Like, maybe be on the ready to get the out on the helicopter. I don't know. It's just really interesting to me that they looked at the people coming into their mall and they went, I'm going to go down there with some guns and show them what
they went, I
like,
could take
they
them.
could actually manage that.
Non-automatic weapons. Yeah.
Yes.
This'll do it.
So this is what gets us. This is what gets us too many zombies too quickly who take out everyone.
Steven.
Yeah.
Well, everyone and Steven.
And Steven.
Yeah. I mean, some of the biker gang absolutely get et. Steven actually ends up getting shot and is trying to make his way back and then ends up trapped in the elevator. And this is the one line I saved from all my messing around of, I say, Jeeves, you have one of your marvelous cures for this zombie bite. No, well, I guess I'll just die then. Thank you. And then, of course, Steven turns. The elevator is open. He's blue.
He's a zombie.
Peter actually does manage to get his way back up to their hidey hole, but what we've been discussing this whole time with these zombies is, like, they do seem to have this almost knee-jerk drive to, like, go back to the places they're familiar with. Mm-hmm. And they feel drawn to them. And, of course, Steven, now turned, feels drawn to the home they made behind this hidey hole. Of course, he can't get up there, but he knows the wall is there, and he starts beating against the wall, and they break through that wall, and they start continuing their way towards their safe area. Now, Fran gets up the stairs. She gets the helicopter ready to go. The bikers have left at this point.
Well, the bikers were never interested in these three, so they're doing whatever it is they're there for initially.
Yeah. Peter has a really interesting, frustrating scene, and it's like, I don't know why we did this. I'm glad about how it resolved itself, but she gets up the stairs, and there's plenty of time for Peter to get up the ladder himself and get on the roof, and they both get out. For some reason, Peter stands there. He backs away. He hides in the back room. He closes the door. The zombies come. Zombies are trying to climb up the stairs, and they're succeeding. They're able to get up onto the roof. Finally, they find Peter. They enter the back room where Peter is. Now, Peter has a small handgun, and he's about to put it to his head like he's going to commit suicide. And it's almost like he comes to his senses, and then he decides, no, I'm going to fight my way out.
Yeah.
Okay, cool story. Wish we didn't get to this point to do it, but
yeah.
All right, fine. Let's fight it out. Now, of course, I was expecting Peter to get bitten and die. I really was expecting it, and then he doesn't. Miraculously, he doesn't. He's just that much of a badass. He's able to hold them off. He gets in the helicopter, and then it's him and Fran, and they fly off into the dawn. And the movie, before it cuts away from the two characters, ends on Peter saying, "How much fuel do we have? Not much." And Peter says, "All right." And that's how the movie ends for the characters we know. Whereas then we cue the weird carnival music, and we see the zombies who have overtaken the mall and are shambling around it. You know, capitalistic Americans, the end.
Right.
I also, side note, didn't know that song was from this movie. The listeners can go and find it if you're so interested. But boy, howdy, was I like, wait, what? It was a surprise.
It was a choice. I mean, I was expecting like mall music, and yet we went with carnival.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah. But that's it. That's our double feature picture show for the Apocalist Book Club. We did it. We made it. We watched 2 zombie movies and talked about them.
For all as complicated, I enjoy Dawn of the Dead in the very campy. I think it's because, like you said, we watched them back to back. And it was a very definitive tone shift from one to the other.
It was a whiplash.
Yeah. It was a little oh no, what's it called? It was a little like culture shock, honestly. It felt like we were dropped into a very different film, and it was like, oh yeah, you have to remember it's 10 years later and all this other stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I really enjoyed Dawn of the Dead, having finally seen it again. I remembered so little about it from when I watched it the first time. I don't even know if I saw it in completion the first time, to be honest. I'm sure it was at like a party and it was just playing on the background.
That's amazing.
For all that it is very much a product of the 70s, I kind of dig it. And of course, Night of the Living Dead, just,
Classic.
Like classic perfection. No notes. I love it.
No notes. None. See, now I have to get you to watch the other of the Deads.
Like, if the third one's about the hubris of science, count me in. I'm kind of want to, maybe this will be the third part of it. Like, we'll do like a third movie just to like close out the zombie movies.
Little triumvirate.
Yeah, I think we might actually have to close it out with the third movie in this.
I'm down.
Just to get that sweet.
I'm in. I like zombies.
Yeah. All right. So why don't you tell people where they can find you?
Oh, yeah. So everyone can find us on, wherever you listen to podcasts, of course. We are also bingeoclockpod.com. Oh, goodness. It's been so long since I've read our end.
I was going to say, like, this is usually my line.
Also true. Maybe I'll let Danielle take this one.
Oh, please. And I wasn't prepared. I mean, yes, we're at Binge O'Clock Pod on Twitter and Facebook. And you can email us at bingeoclockpod@gmail.com.
Yes. And so far we've watched through Almost Human and Fringe and, oh, goodness, 15 or 16 movies at this point. Yeah, we've got some good stuff. Come on and check us out.
And, it's kind of hard to end this without Raven. I'm going to try and figure
out
a good...
Oh, no.
God, it feels a little weird now. It's coming to the end of it. In honor of our guests, which on their podcast we usually end on a question, this is the question I would like to posit to you, gentle listener. How would you die in a zombie apocalypse? You can answer either on the Patreon or you can tweet it at us at Apocalist or, just think about it out loud to yourself. Have that discussion around the dinner table. Horrify your friends and neighbors. On that note, see you next time, even if it is the end of the world.
And there's no one at all, under the stars, the sun, the moon. Now it's ashes in my heart. I burned it all because of you. I burned it all because of you.
Our cover art is by Michael Vincent Bramley. Our theme music is by Robert Prine. Audio editing by Crutch Phrase Studio.
You can find us on Twitter at ApocalyptC, or you can email us at apocalystbookclub@gmail.com.
Gosh, how would I die? Honestly, it would be the cardio. It would be the lack of cardio that would kill me. It doesn't even have to be fast zombies, but like, it would be something like what I think I need to do is more of like the basketball, like,
yeah,
like the basketball exercises
like
where it's just
sidesteppy thing,
sidestep to the line and then run back and then go to the next line, run back and just keep doing those because like I'm bad at pivoting. I've lost like my agility, and that's what you need in a slow zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think I would be in the very first wave of zombies. I live in a densely populated part of the city. Mm-hmm. It's over for me right away. I don't even think I would be in absolutely the very first wave of zombies. And I don't even know how upset I am about that, because then I don't have to worry about living in whatever dystopia exists after
You don't have to worry about surviving.
I don't.
You don't have to worry about doing your agility exercises or if you saved those potatoes.
No cardio, no looking for Twinkies. I would be gone. First wave.
You know what? Sometimes you just have to like lay down and understand that like, I don't know, maybe it's not for me. Go on ahead without me. I'm fine.
Leave me a bag of chips and some water.
I would definitely be like, take my seeds. Before I turned.
Or you would be, a zombie going back to your safe place, and you would just be like zombie planting seeds.
You're right. I'd be out in the garden like with the hose in my hand, just like,
planting seeds.
A zombie Nella appears.